Appreciate you being with us today. Our listeners, you're valuable and your time is valuable. And today you're in for a treat. This person and I had a great opportunity, as we always do, to have a pre-call. And today, Nancy Griffith out of Ontario, Canada, the chief executive and founder of Women, Worth, and Wellness. Again, to slow that down, Women, Worth, and Wellness is our guest. She She brings a wealth of knowledge from a varied background. And so, lest I butcher it, Nancy, with my paraphrasing a decades long career, welcome to our show and just tell us briefly about your path, especially about the Procter and Gamble piece.
Okay, well, thank you, Carl, and I'm delighted to be here. And you and I had a very robust conversation. I don't know, it must have been a month ago now, wasn't it?
Mhm. Almost
Anyway,
exactly to the date.
life unfolds. Well, all very, very interesting. Well, I was one of the first female managers with Procter and Gamble in Canada, and I was promoted into management, which is a big deal because normally you come in through either entry level non-management or entry level management. That's exactly the way Procter and Gamble manages their HR. And so promoted into management, and Procter and Gamble is a fabulous company, really, really good. But this was in the 70s, and they knew that women needed to be in management roles, but then once you're there, they kind of forget about you and you kind of go on about the rest of your business. And it's like, oh yeah, whatever. So all the way along, I was there for 18 years, and all the way along at different points in time, I wanted to leave. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But my VP that I had for most of that time, he didn't have an entrepreneurial bone in his body. And so what I learned is you really need to pay attention to who you take advice from, because in a corporate situation, we know it's very hierarchical. And if you want to do well, you basically, toe the line to get along. So sort of mid 30s, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. He wouldn't let me go on business travel because I had a small child. I mean, these were the limitations in the day. And really, with all due respect, he didn't do it. His intention was not a harmless one. He was really, really thinking that he was doing the best for me. But at the same time, he was just limiting me. And if you don't go on an international assignment with P&G, then again, your career is limited. And again, I found out as I was leaving that there were different people that had requested me, and he had turned them all down. And the day that I did resign, I heard from a friend that I'd worked with over the years who was in Geneva the day after. And he said, no, 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 come and work with me in Geneva. Well, of course, you got to tee those things up like a year in advance. So, anyway, water under the bridge. I left and ran politically. And that in itself was a huge experience because in a corporate role, as I said, it's very hierarchical. Hierarchical. Let's hear you say that. Hierarchical.
Oh, yeah. Do that 3 times. Hierarchical, only because I practiced.
You did it. You did it.
Here we go.
But once you get into the community, everybody's got a voice. There's no hierarchy at all. So,
Mm.
man, oh man, you've got to really use your listening and your influencing skills if you're wanting to make the community a better place. So, I love being in the community, being a leader in the community, ran politically and, all that stuff. But the more you do in a community, the more there is to do. And that's when I thought, oh my goodness, I got to get another new role out of this community. So that's when I was recruited into wealth management. And once I got there, I was sorry I hadn't been there 20 years earlier. It's a perfect role for your female listeners, and for the males who perhaps are in wealth management. Females are the best in that role because women are smart, they're hardworking, they're excellent listeners, and they really, really champion their clients to be their best.
Excellent. So, talk to me about Women, Worth, and Wellness. Where
All
did the
right.
organization come
Okay. So you
to
get
be?
into the wealth business, and you've got to have all your licenses. You're working with a good company, and they've got an excellent training program. So you're all teed up to do well. And then they say, okay, Nancy, the only thing that we don't have for you is clients. You've got to go find your own clients. And of course, longer term, as you started to show them that you could do the job well, then they would give you some potential leads or some potential clients. So this was 1992. And I thought, okay, with what I'd come through, I'm going to focus on women, not exclusively, but primarily. And one of the investment groups that I was working with, they were just realizing that this was a big opportunity, so had came up with a terrific marketing plan or marketing program. So all the materials were there. All I had to do was find a golf course, pick a date, get it organized, and invite them. Do some advertising, which I did. I had over 150 women that came. I found that the first Saturday in November in the morning, like a 10 to 12, 10 to 1, was the sweet spot because summer's over. Christmas hasn't arrived yet. Kids are back in school, and this is when they've got time to circle back with some friends and, pay attention. So I had an overwhelming number of prospects to follow up with. So, of course, you start to meet with people one at a time. And what I found as I started to talk to these women, that they were overwhelmed with the amount of responsibility they had looking after their families' health and wellness. I mean, they were basically the nurse practitioner on site. And so then I realized, oh my goodness, like how much knowledge do women have about all the various aspects of health? Like I don't, I would go to an expert. And in Toronto, we have this fabulous hospital called Women's College Hospital, over 100 years old. All the focus is on women's health and wellness. So I partnered with them, partnered with the Heart and Stroke Foundation. I'd organize again an event. I would charge my clients and their guests a nominal amount, like $25 or $50. So I'm starting to introduce the whole business of how charitable giving back enhances your net worth because that contribution is a deduction from your income tax, but it also enhances your net worth. Because if you're in a situation to share and to give, often the recipient of that gift is you because you feel great that you were able to share.
Mhm.
And so here we are 31 years later, where that whole concept of charitable giving has turned into philanthropy and legacy planning for women because they're earning way more money now than they were when, 31 years ago. But equally important, they're starting to inherit with a whole lot more to come. So women now are really, really stewarding incredible amounts of wealth, which in itself is a huge opportunity because we know that money is power. And so what are you going to do with that power? I mean, now all of a sudden you're in the driver's seat. And where would you like to direct those dollars so that you're enhancing others and also hopefully making the world just a little bit better?
So talk to me. We talked about this on the pre-call. You talked about, again, in the Women Worth and Wellness, about financial worth, but also recognizing one's self-worth.
Exactly.
We tied those two together. I'd like some insights there.
Well, what I encourage people to do is both for your health and your wealth, you have a trusted advisor with whom you work. And a trusted advisor is that professional who has all the credentials and experience, but more importantly, has your back.
Mhm,
And once you know that that person is a professional and has your back, then you're more likely to be open and honest with where you're coming from.
mhm,
Well, both areas, health and wealth. If you don't have the answers, sometimes you don't ask the questions because you don't want to, when you ask a question, it shows how much you know or you don't know. But the
mhm,
more questions you ask, the more knowledgeable you become. And once you've got your health scenario in order and your wealth scenario in order, then you've got a whole huge level of confidence, which to me equals self-worth. It's like I am really proud of myself that I'm owning my health, I'm owning my wealth, I'm seeking out the proper advisor. And if that wealth advisor hasn't anticipated health related challenges, then you're not working with a proper wealth advisor. But once you get working with that person and you're asking questions and you can see that they're serving you exceptionally well, it's like I've got my life in order. I mean, nobody knows what the future is, but to the best of your ability, you've got it in order.
So talking to someone who has been in the trenches for decades, and we live, Nancy, in such a results-oriented environment. And here you're talking about big picture items that I can hear some of our nurses and doctors driving to work thinking, how does this, why are we talking about this on the Healthcare Leadership Excellence podcast? What does this have to do with my work performance? Could you address that as a real, as if I just asked that? How does this apply? Because we haven't talked about results yet. We haven't talked about any of the KPIs. Why are we talking about self-worth, health, and financial wellness as an aspect of leadership?
It has everything to do with how well you do at work. It has everything because it's a whole level of confidence, a whole level of self-awareness and self-being. It's like, I know who I am. I know what my health scenario is. I know what my wealth scenario is. I know I've anticipated the future. I'm working with an advisor that I feel very comfortable having an excellent dialogue with, both as it pertains to my health and it pertains to my wealth, because the two are definitely intertwined. Um, Often people don't focus on their health, and then they've got to use their wealth to get themselves back on track. And of course, in Canada, we're privileged in many ways with the health coverage we do have. We know what's going on in the US. So, more than ever, in the US, you cannot afford to be sick. You can't. You
Mhm.
can't.
Yeah.
And anybody who hasn't made their health a priority and then something happens, then you lose just a little bit of your self-worth because you know you should have done a better job of making it a priority sooner. So never be ashamed, never think that you're not worthy of making yourself the AAA1 priority.
Talk to us about the Worthy Tour.
Oh, I'd love it. I'm still working on that. And don't be surprised if it doesn't happen because I've talked about it a lot. Like, you are worthy. You are worthy. That's everybody. That's a 10-year-old. That's a 90-year-old. That's, you know, when I mention 90, they think, well, I'm old, so why would I bother? Well, why wouldn't you bother? Because being 90, you've got a tremendous amount of wisdom. So everybody's worthy of sharing who they are and what they have to offer. Actually, I may not have mentioned this. I did,
Oh, wow. I love that. You only live once,
oh,
YOLO. Gotta
that's right. So I had this one gentleman. He was terrific. We had the best time. He was sponsoring my events. So I said, let's do a YOLO event. And a YOLO event was, we'll invite 4 women business owners to an establishment owned by a woman, and we'll let them tell their stories. And this was the key to success, Carl. Each woman had 10 minutes, no interviewing, none whatsoever. So if you ever give any woman 10 minutes with an audience uninterrupted, she thinks she's won the lottery. We ended up doing 5 of them because we had women that came the first night. I think we had about 45 or 48. And they said to me afterwards, Nancy, if you're doing this again, I'd love to be a guest speaker. So we just kept same formula. We just found another location. We found out things about women that you would never have known had you not let them just tell their story. They felt very, very comfortable with this group of people, so they were more than willing to share their vulnerabilities that they might not have
Mhm.
had they not felt so comfortable. But it was just, we couldn't believe it. It was just amazing and so, so simple. So simple. So everybody just wants to be heard.
Tell me about, or tell our listeners about our conversation regarding the Forbes Women's Summit and your participation in that.
I thought you were going to say about your book that you're coming out with, the beautiful art. That's a separate topic. Yeah, the
That's
Forbes Women's Summit was excellent, and I participated virtually, which was a real bonus. And the first guest speaker was Melinda French Gates, and she's always impressive. I mention her name frequently because, to me, the definition of an accomplished woman is someone who has arrived, because a lot of women have spent the last 30 or 40 years just working on arriving, like getting to be a VP, business owner, the head of whatever. This is what you've aspired to, and this is what you've now achieved. But once you've arrived, now what are you going to do? Like, now you're in a powerful role with a lot of opportunity to literally make the world a better place. And this is what Melinda French Gates is doing. She had got all that money through no fault of her own. but she's not wasting a minute or a penny um, on anything other than making the world a better place. And in my opinion, being a fabulous role model, really, really positive.
And then the
So
next person was Mackenzie Scott.
Mackenzie's, no, she wasn't on that summit, but she's another
Mhm.
philanthropist. And what's interesting about her, well, Melinda, first of all, has just allocated 100 million for research into women's health, which is super. Mackenzie Scott, she doesn't, what I understand, ask a lot of questions. You know, it sounds good. She just apparently gave 80 million to Howard University. And I think what's happening, because you know how strong the markets have been, I think these portfolios are growing up faster than they can give it away. But
Mhm.
at the same time, they're on a mission to make the world a better place. And, you know, that to me just is so admirable. The other person that I probably mentioned to you was Demi Moore. She was one
Yes.
of the guest speakers.
Mhm.
And I thought the interviewer was just, you know, sort of really interviewing her intensely. I just thought she might have been a little softer. But anyway, didn't slow Demi down. She said, you know, because I think the question probably was, well, how have you managed to get through your life with all the challenges that you've had? And Demi's response is, my attitude about life is that life happens for you. It does not happen to you. And I thought, that sounds very simple, but that's exceptionally profound.
Mhm.
Because when we think that life happens to us, it's like we're a victim. Whereas if life happens for you, there it is on a lovely platter. It's like, oh, here you go. Now, what are you going to do with this? There's so many possibilities here. Over to you, smart person. I want you to do the very best that you can. And I thought, you know, that's a showstopper when you really think about it.
Perfect platform for part two of the episode, which is using 18 years at Procter and Gamble plus decades of managing wealth and leading wealth management for your clients. You talked in our pre-call about the third paradigm. We have
Right.
compete, we have collaborate, and we have co-create. And just to set a little scenario, I see I'm heading out tomorrow on a 3-day business trip where for an entire year we've now met 7 times, 4 hours each, um, struggling to help them get rid of silos, which is their competition. We've made some great progress, but talk to us about those 3 areas: compete, collaborating. I love the third, co-create.
Well, that's the book, The Third Paradigm, and it's exceptional. And I was interviewed and shared some of the key learnings from it, but it's a fabulous book. And I would encourage people, if you're in business, get it because it really causes you to stop and think about things. And you know, when we talk about these paradigms, it's like they happened over long periods of time, not just bing, bing, bing in 1 week. So if you're in business, you're competing. And if you're competing, then you've got to be the smartest person on the block to get ahead with your marketing plan versus, you know, think about Procter and Gamble or Colgate. Then there's collaborate, and we all know what collaboration is. To a large extent, that's largely how we work these days. But I was so impressed when I saw this co-create and read more about what this is all about. What you have to do is get to a higher level in terms of very simply saying, what is the ultimate that you're trying to achieve? What is the ultimate? Like, what does the ultimate look like? And you know, again, it's like begin with the end in mind, and then work your way back. Okay, well, this is what you're working on, and this is what we're working on. And it seems to me that we've got some commonalities here that perhaps we could do something. And I'll give you an example. I probably gave this to you when we talked. I'm a Rotarian, and this year the international theme is Unite for Good. And so I live in this area where we've got over 90 wineries and lots of foodies and, you know, blah, blah, blah. We've got the Chamber of Commerce, we've got the Wine Growers Association, we've got the agricultural group. Okay, so there's this theme. And Wassail, we're just heading into Wassail now, which is the end of the season when
Mhm.
you celebrate the harvest. And so I said, and of course, what was really, really interesting, this is the theme. I said we should have a Rotary Wassail because a lot of these organizations don't really understand what Rotary does. This one winery, the lady said, "Oh my goodness, this is amazing," because she said people come to us all the time wanting to host a fundraiser for us to participate. I said, "This is exactly what Rotary does. Rotary's in business to organize events, raise money. I mean, the more money we can raise, the better, because then that gives us that much more of an opportunity to give it back into the community or around the world." So this is a huge co-creation opportunity that I introduced this year, and I'm going to work on it next year. And I'm hoping that it's something that will happen on an annual basis.
So let's take this into a hospital, where let's just say Jane Doe nurse, Jane Doe physician or surgeon is battling for resources. Let's just take it an example that I worked with, neurosurgeon, um, running a department of 71 people, active in surgery, active in clinic, responsible as medical director of that unit. Um, and it can be dog eat dog. It's medical school is competitive. Client, you are competing for patients. So give some coaching to Nurse Jane Doe or Surgeon Jane Doe in regards to how to get herself and those around her into co-create mode instead of competing or reluctant collaboration. What?
Well, I think the key component is wellness. Everybody's focusing on wellness. Wellness of those individual staff people, obviously the wellness of the clients, but the wellness of all the work that we have to do. So is there any way when we focus on wellness that we can think about how we can join forces to some extent, it doesn't have to be to a complete extent. Is there any way that we can join forces so that we're enhancing the wellness all the way along the line? Like the wellness of the professionals, the wellness of the staff, and obviously the ultimate recipient is the wellness of the patient.
We talked also about along the same line. There's I see people trying and doing a fairly good job at influencing just their little world, be it a 70 person neuro unit or whatever. But I hear a common theme of Carl. I belong to a big organization and it's the 800-pound gorilla. And you talked about influencing skills. Talk to us a little bit more about the art of influencing and how one goes about that.
Well, you know what might happen is one of these YOLO events
Mm-hmm.
and don't interview. I mean, obviously, when you form that, the audience needs to be one that anybody who is sharing feels welcome and trusted and supported. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you wouldn't want to have anything that wasn't working well.
Yes.
But if it's a trusted environment, and trust is always very, very fragile, but there are
Mm-hmm.
ways that you can work on that as well. I think one of the ways to build trust is to do a lot of listening,
Mm-hmm.
even though when you're in such a fast-paced environment, there are opportunities for listen, just say, "Can we have coffee sometime?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's 10 minutes. And during that 10 minutes, you're not interfering with your phone. You're not looking beyond the person. You're listening. You're listening to what that person has to say. And then give them a suggestion. Do you think this might be something that you and I could work on? It's a very small thing, but maybe we can start to be examples and role models, like I mentioned about Melinda French Gates, to get things moving in another direction. I
Mm-hmm.
talked with this one girl the other day, and we were talking about health, and she said, "Well, there are no seminars." I said, "Wherever anybody lives, there's a hospital. Like if you have an emergency, you're going to the hospital. Where is the hospital?" And I said, "Don't expect them to provide everything for you. Why don't you go in and say, would it be possible for me to host an event here with one of your doctors or whomever to be the guest speaker and with a room and with coffee, and I'll take the lead." And I said, that enhances your brand. And
Mhm.
now you're helping them by bringing in the public into their world, which is what they would love to have, so that people have a greater appreciation for what goes in there behind those walls, other than when it's an emergency and you're lying on a gurney in the hall. She said,
Exactly.
"What a great idea. I'm going to do that." So, my point is just turn your old head in another direction and don't wait for stuff to come to you. Like, you got to put yourself out there, take it a step at a time, proceed with all due respect, and just see what you can work up. And more often than not, once you start to make something happen, people will be delighted. They will be absolutely delighted. And then you go on from there. Just keep building.
So I want to jump on something you said because it's one of my favorite themes. I coach a lot of medical professionals, and they're always taken back a bit when I talk about, doctor, what is your brand? And that sounds too commercial. I'm not in business. I'm a provider. I'm a physician. I'm a surgeon. But I love that point. So as someone who spent 18 years in the brand trenches with P&G, how would you talk to somebody, male or female, about the importance, even as a professional with MD, DO, PhD after their names? How do you talk about brand? Because I see it's definitely part of the worth equation.
Well, I think you ask them, what is your unique offering?
Mhm,
Like, what is your unique offering? We know the Tide detergent, the unique offering is it's a laundry detergent that has your clothes perfectly clean.
mhm,
So, what is your unique offering? And this group in Toronto, actually, they're all over the world. It's called the Strategic Coach. And
mhm,
as an entrepreneur, you meet quarterly with a bunch of entrepreneurs from all over the world. And very, very simply, he says, "Who are you? Define your unique offering. And as soon as you know what your unique offering is, then you put a trademark on it." And that's exactly how Women Worth and Wellness came about. But first of all, who are you? So that's a way to ask an MD. What is your unique offering? I'll tell you another little story. Some of your listeners may know of Louise Penny. She's an incredible author. She's just had a book launch. I think it's about her 28th book or something. She lives outside of Montreal, but her husband was a doctor at the Children's Hospital in Montreal, and his job was to look after the children who were dying. So not a pleasant role. She said, "I could not believe it. Every night he would come home, he's happy." And she's like, "How can you be so happy?" He said, "I'm happy because I'm alive and I'm privileged and I need to make the most of being alive, which is my happiness offering."
mhm.
And then, of course, he was a big coach for her, and he ended up with Alzheimer's, which she looked after him for 4 years. And now they have a cafe. She has a cafe, and every Monday it's closed. So the Alzheimer's patients can come in and have this whole cafe to themselves. But
Wow.
she just was totally overwhelmed with how happy, and such a sad, sad role. But
Mhm.
and he
Excellent point. So as we wrap up here, there's a big piece we haven't talked about yet, and I want to run it by you. Again, to our listeners, this is someone who trench level industry and has a lot of insight on this topic. So this is a scenario, and Nancy, we of course ran this through. Um, we have a nurse who graduated with her BSN 4 years ago, and she is just spectacular. She's energetic, she's friendly, she does good quality nursing care, and she's bedside, and she works with about 20, 30 other nurses. Because she's doing really well, she is now asked to be a charge nurse, which now means she's over other nurses, where before she's just horizontal with them. And she also may be asked to be an assistant nurse manager, which means she leaves the rank and file and now becomes a leader, and there's a hierarchy. predictably, those people that loved her, supported her, were all about, let's just call her Jill. Now Jill is the boss, and we start to have some mean girl syndrome kick in. And I've had many nurses come to me saying, Carl, I had no idea this was part of leadership. I mean, I've lost my friends, I've lost my social circle. I still know I'm competent, but I don't like going into work anymore because real scenario here. One person even had to deal with a private Facebook page that was just loaded with gossip about her. And she found out about it through the back door. As one who has decades of battling successfully, what takeaways can you give to Jill, who may be listening today, of, okay, I can survive this and thrive through this? Thoughts?
Okay, well, I mentioned the tall poppy syndrome.
Go
And for
into that for us.
yeah, for any of your listeners who don't know what that is, dial it up, tall poppy syndrome. It was defined in Australia. And it's very, very simply when somebody like Jill arrives and is standing out above the crowd, the rest logically want to cut her down to their size. No, you can't be that tall. You can't. And more often than not, that tall poppy exits stage left. Do not go. Do not go. You hold your ground and you be the best that you can be. But also, and this is when your health is really your AAA1 asset to help you work your way through this. For example, you can't have sleepless nights because you need to be well rested to get to work the next day. My favorite expression in situations like this, we used to say go big and go home. Now I say go big and keep going. Like keep going. You've got every right to be there. You are worthy. You absolutely are worthy. And I probably mentioned to you that I had a similar situation myself where somebody tried to take me down because this is a role that she's been in for 35 years. And who did I think I was? And the only thing that kept me going was knowing what is right and what is wrong. Like if I've got every right to be here and I've got other people reinforcing the role that I'm now in and mentoring me to do well, and this one is trying to take me down, that is her problem. It is not my problem. So you really have to hold your own in terms of knowing that you are worthy. Doesn't mean you get up on a big soapbox and start to be difficult or never be mean. Don't be mean. Just take your time and have a mentor and stay with it.
How do I deal, speaking as Jill here, Nancy, how do I deal with the mean girls? Because they won't even make eye contact with me now. They walk by me as if I wasn't there. And when I talk to them, I go through their attitude filter big time. How do I deal with that day after day?
Okay, well, what is that person's role? And what are some other ways that you can blend that person's role in with others who are good people, who are nice people, who aren't mean girls? Obviously she's feeling a little threatened or feeling a little um, unable, a little on the fringe. So it's just a matter of stepping back and saying, how can I help this person feel better about herself so that she doesn't need to strike away at me? And think it through. Like you really have to be very, very strategic. Always be kind, don't be mean. Think about other ways that you can have blend her in with some others who are doing well without them knowing this is what you're doing.
The blending in leads me to probably my last question. What's been your best approach as you've led at you're at age 39, you were,
I left.
yeah,
That's when I resigned. Right.
up to that point and subsequent to that, what are some steps that people can take to, as leaders, to develop the leaders around them?
Well, one lady asked me the other day on her podcast, what would I have defined as a success factor given all those different places that I've been? And I said, I think the one thing that is most important is that you're always in groups of like-minded people. If you're in a group of like-minded people, then collectively you can move forward, whatever role you're in. Maybe could be a community group, it can be a work group, but and like-minded to me are people who are respectful, never mean, never mean. And you can see the difference. I had an incident recently where this one person I thought was a fine fellow, and all of a sudden a meanness factor came out. And seriously, women are very, very, very tuned into that kind of behavior. As
Mhm.
soon as I've seen that, now I will steer clear of that person. I will have to spend time working with him, but I won't spend time with him the way I would have spent time with him previously. So never be mean. You can be challenging, you can be questioning. There are all sorts of ways that you can be different, but never, 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 never go out of your way to be mean and put somebody down and be disrespectful and be a gossip and all those negative things. Just don't do it. Just be the best person you can be and be a good person and just don't go there.
So I keep saying it's the last question, but I keep getting more questions as we talk. Um, we've talked a lot about women today. I get Harvard Business Review, I read Wall Street Journal, and the statistics still, after decades of struggle for parity in the work site, in many cases, it's still organizations are run by men. So, what advice, what counsel would you give to our male listeners regarding using the incredible talent base of women that is many times disregarded for a variety of very poor reasons?
Well, again, I would say don't be selfish. Find out who this woman is and go out of your way to be a champion for that person. Sometimes women are not the best champions of other women. I go out of my way to put that myth right in the back seat. And so what you're saying is this is something that men do. I would suggest that men take the time to get to know some amazing women and then take it one step further and go out of your way and be a champion. Be a champion for that woman because that attitude and that behavior will come back to you in spades. It really will. And don't do it frivolously. I mean, don't do it just because you want to do it. Do it because you've now paid attention to who this person is, and you can now see how that person can make a terrific contribution over here. Maybe they were headed here, but
Mhm.
take the time to think it through. And once you see that that person can really perform here, then
Mhm.
go out of your way. Speak to another VP who may be able to make that happen. Really go out of your way. And that will come back to you in so many ways. I think men sometimes feel threatened. Like, why would I do that? Well, why wouldn't you do it? You know, if you believe in humanity, period, then do it. Do it. You'll be proud of yourself. And so will your daughter.
Excellent. Nancy, any closing words you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
Yes, I want to see your book within the next year.
So, just to our listeners, what she's talking about, she had this marvelous idea, and I immediately reached out to my assistant who has it in the works of
Wonderful.
make of well tell us I can you can tell it better than I can paraphrase it. What was your idea?
Well, when we first met, on comes Carl, and I said, I forget what it was. Well, because I haven't been meeting with a lot of men, number one, and number two, men with a shirt and tie on. So this is a special occasion. And then I said, have you written a book or something? He said, no, no, no. There are lots of other people out there that have written a lot of good books. I don't need to. But then you said weekly I share my wisdom in a newsletter. And I said, well, then why don't you just keep it simple, like a children's book? So put your wisdom and then put a nice art picture over here. And that gets people's attention. It ends up being a coffee table book and everybody loves inspiring wisdom. I mean, really, we default to the negative. So, this in itself is a huge opportunity. And then you mentioned you have an assistant who's an artist. I said, perfect.
So, to our listeners, stay tuned. It's
Right.
forthcoming. It'll take a while, but it's on its way.
Good
Nancy,
work. Well,
thank you so much for spending time with us today.
you're more than welcome. My pleasure. My pleasure. All the very best.
And how do people get in contact you if they want further information on your organization?
Okay. Send me an email, Nancy at womenworthwellness.com. Nancy at womenworthwellness.com. Then you'll get into our database. And one of the programs that we're working up as an offshoot of Women Worth and Wellness is Women's Age of Integrity and Action.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. And listeners, follow up on that. You have a wealth of information that you just listened to. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Carl. All the best.